All right, folks, howdy, welcome back to another THSS Tech video. We're going to be using Aseprite today. Let me just open it up. Aseprite on our computer here. And we were going to make a video for you to use in any one of your classes, really. So I'm going to make a tile set, which is something we do with our grade 11 and 12 game design classes. But for you in grade 9 or 10 in one of our media classes or any other interested students, you're welcome to use some of the tips from this video. It's our advanced Aseprite video. So I'm going to make a little new file, and like I said, I'm going to make a tile set. So I'm going to start with a pretty big canvas. I'm going to make it 512 by 512. So that's going to mean that we can divide this up. 512 is a multiple of 2, but it's also a multiple of 32, which is a common pixel art size, and 16. So it's a pretty flexible size, and it gives us lots of space to do what we want to do. So I'm going to make a 512 by 512 canvas. It's going to be huge. Okay, so like I said, we're going to make a tile set for our pixel art game here. And so we got to set that up. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide what size tiles I'm going to be using. For our purposes, I'm going to be using a 32 by 32 tile. Why does that matter? Well, because we're going to make a grid that's 32 by 32. There, and you can see our little blue grid lines going on here. So that's going to be the size of the tile we're going to use. So you'll see why in a little bit why I chose a larger tile. We're just going to play around with that a bit more. And what's really important for you, if you are following along, is that we're going to be using Aseprite 1.3. You can see up here. So for the video we're going to be doing for the tile set, you need to make sure you're at least using Aseprite 1.3. A lot of the features are going to be using around tiles were added in the 1.3 update. So make sure you're using 1.3 at least. If your computer in the tech lab is not set up for 1.3, just let us know and we'll record the correct version. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about tiles. Okay, so let's look at some old games that had tiles. So I have some up here. This is, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog. So Sonic the Hedgehog is you use a tile map, just like we're going to be creating for our game, and a pixel art based character. And we can see here, it's called a 32-bit game, so there's lots of different colors that it was using. But Sonic is, you can see the shoes on Sonic here, really, if you look at close, they're outlined in black. And the main tile that Sonic is able to walk on has a light surface facing Sonic. And you can see, like, on the trees, there's some shading here. It goes sort of light, and then it's outlined on a black at the back there. The leaves on the trees. So if you just start looking at more pixel art, you can see what designers used to do with their games in order to make it more readable for the player. You don't really notice when you're playing because you're going so fast, but you want it to be readable to the player, to know what things can be touched, what things are just background, and you want to know that as instantly as possible. So let's look at a little simpler game here. I got Mario 3, and you can see anything that Mario interacts with here is outlined in black. So these would be tiles that would have been created for this game, and all outlined in black, Mario outlined in black, and different elements. Now this star here is outlined in red because that's something that you can gain in the game. So the game designer was cleverly using colored outlines to explain what the kinds of elements in the game would do. Let's look a little ahead to a little bit more of a complex one here. Street Fighter. You're not going to design a game like Street Fighter, but you can see the same principles apply. You can see that the main characters here, the two playable characters here, they have outlines as well. Now they're shaded outlines and they're a lot more complex. And the animations that were used for these characters would have played with a lot of the colors between these. This is when games were getting more and more complex. But you can see basic stuff. This castle in the background, for example, is outlined to make it stand out from the blue sky. Otherwise, it would have washed in there. If you look at a more modern game, here's Dead Cells here. Again, pixel art. One of the neat things about Dead Cells is the lighting effects. The lighting effects are done sort of in post, acting on the various elements of the game. We'll maybe get to that later this year in game design. But you can see the surface that's walkable here is a lighter pixel. So almost all the way through, the surface that's actually walkable is facing the character's shoes here, a light band of pixel. So it makes it readable again. And then interestingly, Dead Cells actually has a lot more detail in its tile map versus the characters, who tend to be really simple. No outlines on the characters, or very few, and very blocky shades of colors. Usually only like 4 or 5 colors in one of the characters in Dead Cells. So a lot of stylistic choices to make a difference between a character and the background elements of that game. Here's another pixel art game for the Switch. I've never played this game, but I mean, same kind of thing. You got sort of outlines on everything. So it does help to look at what people actually do for pixel art games. So you can sort of choose a style yourself. Okay, now I want to show you something cool about Aseprite that I learned recently. So let's say I want to use this Sonic. I want to make something similar to this Sonic, and I don't want to be flipping back and forth here between these two things as I'm trying to design it. So what you can do is you can actually take the picture and click and hold and drag, and you can drag it. Oh, I can't do it with that one. Well, let's try. I don't know. It doesn't like doing that at all. Okay. Well, then we can copy it, and we can make a new one here. And you can see it creates the same thing here, and I can paste it in here. Now, flipping between these two is not useful. So I can actually take this whole tab, and I can dock it somewhere. It little ducks out where I can dock it. So let me say I want to dock it here. And now I move this here. I can see my inspiration image here on the side while I'm trying to make something. So that could be really useful for some of you who like to use sort of inspiration and art boards and stuff like that. So you can just dock it to the side, and then you can create the tile palette that we're going to make here. Okay, I'm not going to do that because I don't need to, but I'll keep it over here because it's kind of interesting, I guess. I can dock this somewhere as well. Oh, maybe not when I have something docked. Anyway. Okay, so we've got our setup 512 by 512 document. And one thing I've really been playing with lately is limited tile sets. So one of the first things we always told you get to do is open up the tile palettes that are there. And we said, well, I'll just use the one with the most number of colors, this Google UI one. Now, one of the challenges I'm finding with making pixel art that looks distinct is that this color palette is kind of too much, and a lot of these older games, again, if you look at actual real world examples, they're using some really limited colors, and so we are going to try to do the same thing. So I'm not going to choose the Google UI palette instead, and you can find one that you like. I'm going to choose this 64-bit palette here right at the top, the AAP64. I really also like built into Aseprite is this Zuji 32. It's like a really muted palette. I'm gonna use the 64 palette here because there's just a bit more colors here. I'm just gonna double click on that and use that palette instead. It looks like a bit of a mess. It doesn't dock nicely over here and like give me all the greens in one strip, which I would prefer, but it's still a pretty nice palette. If you want more palettes to choose from, you can go back to the internet and you can look up a site called Low Spec. Low Spec. I think it's spelled weird. Like Lost Spec. Anyway, these palettes can be downloaded straight into Aseprite. And there's some really cool like small palettes there, so I recommend this site for checking out color palettes. I'm no artist, as anyone in my class could easily tell you, but these ones are pretty cool from that lowspec.com, so that's a cool website. Okay, but enough talking. Let's start making our color palette, or making our actual tile palette. Okay, so I'm going to make this tile palette with a little bit of blank space above and below it, so that when I make something, I'll just, you know, start brushing out. By the way, I'm holding Control. Hopefully you can see my little hotkeys there. I'm holding Control and using the mouse wheel, and that makes a larger kind of thing. Let's say I'm making a grass palette here, and I could start, you know, drawing some grass. I'm trying to keep it within these blue lines here. Sometimes if I want to start making a tile, I can press M for the marquee tool over here, and I can draw, like, I want to make one tile. And so I'll mask everything else off. And so when I go in here with a brush, it just makes the one tile, right? Press B for brush, by the way. Okay, so like if I was going to make a tile here and trying to keep in mind some of the things I just talked about, we would maybe make some grass here. Press G, go back to my other color with that key there. And then maybe, you know, towards the bottom of this tile palette here, I could do that. And then, you know, that's getting similar to, I guess maybe I should have put that Sonic one in there, but, you know, something similar to this where it's got the light greens at the top, and then of course it shades down, and that would be my rough sort of start to my palette there. But what I'm going to show you how to do is actually set up your tile palette, but using only 13 tiles. Okay, so I'm going to undo all that work that I just did, and I'm going to lay out my tile palette the way I want. I'm going to use a square brush for this, and we're going to come up here with sort of a neutral color. I'm going to keep the brush kind of big. I don't know, 7 pixels is a bit strange. Let's use 4. And I'm going to come here, and again, I'm going to leave a little bit at the top. I'm going to click once, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key. Holding down the Shift key makes a line when you're on the brush tool. And I'm just going to do to this bottom thing here, and this is about, I guess, 3 pixels up, 3 pixels down, and about 3 pixels to the side. So I have what I think is a good line here, and then I'm going to draw it out so it's a 3 by 3 square in the same way. Drawing it back 1, 2, 3 pixels. 1, 2, 3. No, that's 4. 1, 2, 3. A little hard to get there. Okay, same thing with the bottom. Come over here and draw down. Okay, so I have a start of a proper 3 by 3 tile. I can, you know, fill the middle or something like that, and then I have a real basic way of doing a proper tile set, because I'm going to show you something really cool. So watch this. So in Aseprite 1.3, we can now tell Aseprite that we want these to be tiles. And you can do that by right-clicking on the layer you just made. You can even call this layer, you know, grass tiles. And we can right-click on it and then say convert to a tile map. So hey, Aseprite, use a tile map. We're going to make a new tile set. We call it grass tiles. We're going to make it 32 by 32 because that's what I've chosen to do. And I'm going to put OK. And you can see now we have a color palette over here on the left. And below that we have a tile palette. And I can start, you know, like actually building a level. So I click on the tile palette and it works the same. I hit brush there. And I can start, you know, designing a little level with a platform. And then we're going to instantly know that we've got a problem. Because if I want this to be a platform here, I don't have an inside tile that I can use. I need an inside tile. I've got all the tiles I need to build the outside of something, but nothing I can use to build the inside. So we're going to correct that mistake here by going over to the top here. And I need to go back to my color palette, and I can do that with Shift-Tab. Shift-Tab allows me now to paint with colors. Okay, and then you can see every time I'm going to paint now, it's going to start building new tiles on each one of my little grid squares. And I may or may not want that. I'm going to switch out of that mode in a little bit. I'm just showing you that that's what it does. So I need to make the inner tiles now for this. And so I'm going to want to spend a little more time on the outer tiles. Like I got this like real highlight color, and I can come here. I guess I should show you something really cool that a lot of my students don't know, and that's the shading option. So let's say I just want to shade one of those pixels, and I got these 3 greens here I can work with. I can go to this bottle here, and I can click the shading button, and then it loads up those 3 colors here. And now what I can do is get a brush. I can make that brush really big, and you can see my brush starts changing over top of where it sits. And so I can now, by right clicking, start shading the edge of this, okay? And by left clicking, it actually goes darker. So there's, if it's in the middle option, it goes to this option. And if it's the outer option, it goes 1 shade darker. So, you know, you can start messing around. It's kind of neat. And we're going to do that in a little bit. I just take it for granted that people know about the shading option, but it's really useful for this kind of thing. Go back to those, and I can just quickly come around the edge, making sure, mistake, making sure the outer edge of my tile is that green that we saw like in the Sonic game and in Dead Cells, where you can see a light highlight around interactable surfaces. And that's a choice. You can do the black outline like the other games we saw as well, or you can do no outline at all. It doesn't matter to me, but we got a little problem here. So we started laying out this level here so we could start looking at what it might look like. And I made the changes here, but I probably wanted to make it look like over there. So there's a little mode for that. This is super handy. So I'm going to undo all the stuff I did, because you have to do this first. And then up here, it's given, when I made this a tile palette, it gave me some options here, okay? And the option it defaults to is space 2 or mode 2, which is when you paint on the map, it creates a new tile, okay? I don't want to do that. I want to make I don't want to make new tiles at all. I want it to change existing tiles. So I'm going to go back to the shading option, and I come in here and, you know, make some changes to these tiles here. And keen-eyed students will notice that it's actually making changes over here. So I change over here, and it changes all the tiles that fit that exact same configuration in my tile palette here. So I've got tiles now that are changed, and it would do the same thing down here. So let's say I come down here, turn it off shading mode for a second, and I want to make, you know, like slightly darker, you know, leaves or something like that. And you can see it starts doing it down there as well. So it's really handy for quickly laying out a level. Okay, now because I'm using a limited tile palette, like if I went through here with a gradient, like we show you in class, you know, we're going to use a gradient instead, and we load up a color with our left click and load up a color with our right click, and we start shading. It gives me too many colors. Like, this isn't the look I'm going for. I'm not looking for this really smooth look between colors. I don't like that for this kind of tile set. So I'm going to make another change here, and that is, if you look at old games, let's see here if we can find an example with limited tile sets, it makes gradients, not that one, it makes gradients. You can sort of see it here with the Mario pipe. We lost our little Sonic window here somewhere. Oops. Yeah, you can see it down here, these little speckles here. So like this area here of the Sonic game is only partially shaded, right? And that's the way that the game designer wanted to do it, these little speckles, okay? So those are called dithering. So right here it says no dithering. I'm actually going to turn dithering on. Let's just do 2 by 2 so you can see what I mean. And when I load up one color and then the other color, and I click and hold, you can see, I use this color and this color, you can see what it's doing. Isn't that neat? So that little pattern there is called a dithering pattern. So it's not shading it in the same way. It's shading it by slowly fading one color to another using this kind of weird look, dots, okay? And I might, play with that. I might make it a little more organic in a little bit, but I'm just going to start with a little dithering pattern on each of my things here, each of my sides, and I'm going to make sure I'm in mode 1 so you can see. Oh, I don't want it to do. I got to start from here. Yeah, there we go. We can see. I guess I can hold down Shift and it would go straight. That's what I want in this case. There. Okay, so now it's a different look. Might not be one you love, but it's more traditional for this kind of old style game. And I can come in here with a little brush, and I can load one color with one click and one color with the other click, and I can start making this a little more, roughed up so that the colors bleed into another a little bit more naturally. And that's an artistic choice. You might like that. Again, you students tend to be better artists than your teachers. So this is something that's going to be a choice for you. Okay, but I kind of like that a little bit better. We can even do the same thing with bleeding this into it. We're working again with limited color, so I'm finding that limited colors just sort of allow my creativity to flow a bit better. But I also don't want you to spend 100 years doing it. Okay, but I kind of like that look a little bit better for the game that maybe I'm trying to make. I could even, I can come in here and rough up the top surface a little bit to make it a little more, something that would look traveled on, like actual grass. Let's load up that. There we go. We just make it a little more natural looking. Okay, so that's kind of neat. I like that, and I could go through and do that over and over again on everything else. Okay, but we still have the problem here that we need this internal tile. So I can make it, so I'm going to go back to mode 2 because I want to make another tile, another type of tile. Okay, and I can come here with a brush and just match up these two lines. That was terrible. Let's go back to a square brush and hold down Shift so I can get, there we go. And then same with this color here. I can start the same kind of process here. And then, I'm going to mask off this tile here. And then grab that color, go brush, and G, I can fill it like that. Okay, so now we have this here. Okay, and then I'll show you another trick here. Let's say if I like this tile, again, I can go here, go back to my dithering gradient here, load up this color and this color. Oh, that's the wrong direction. And a little bit tricky there. I might have to do that by hand then. Here and just sort of speckle up the joint. What did I do today? I made a video about speckles. I do like speculoos. Okay, so like some more of that roughened look that I was kind of going for before, which isn't traditional dithering, but whatever. I like it a little bit better. I'll come here and just add a bit more of that. Okay, so I got this now, this one tile here. I'm going to go and click on it in my tile palette, and I'm actually going to design it up here so it seems similar to the other one. I'm going to click there, And ooh, I gotta hit brush. Sorry, B to. Oh no, because I'm in. Oh, that's because I still have my mask on. Control D deselects any masks that you have. There we go. And I can go space R. Hopefully you can see the keystroke there. Space R rotates my selection that I have. Okay, so there's sort of a big old tile there. And then we have this tile for the middle, so I can, click the middle tile here and start mapping this out. And, I like to create a little plausible situation here so we can make sure we have all our tiles. I want to go up and, oh yeah, that's because this isn't matching up. It's not going to be exact because I'm in the wrong direction. Down here, so I can make sure I worked out most of the kinks here. Okay, so I got most tiles there. I think if you hold Control, it gives you a little like which tile is which. This is number 1. You can see that there. This is tile 0. Yeah, could be helpful for you or not. And then what I always do, so I have this extra space. So really, I could make not a 512 by 512 tile palette. I could just do this, and I can start. I could finish the job of roughing these tiles up, and I could finish this. And then I'll show you one more thing here. So I'm gonna just pause my video here. Okay, folks, we're back again. Sorry, I was just roughing up my tiles, making it look a little more organic. Again, that's a stylistic choice, and you do have to be careful that when you do something like that, it does still match up at the edges, which is why it's handy to have sort of the whole thing drawn out. But yeah, it can be useful. So I want to talk a little bit about this center area here. It depends, again, your style, what you're going for, but you may not like such huge blocks of color. But the challenge is, on our color palette here, we don't actually have any more, greens that we can really use. Like, this is a bit of a weird clashing green to sort of the sagey, minty look of these 3 tiles. And so we have to do something called hue shifting. Ooh. And in hue shifting, you're kind of going to pick a color that's complementary, but could be a shade if you go to a different color. So actually, like this purple looks not too bad for this. I'm going to go back to this mode here. And you can sort of like, start, oh, it's a bit big of a brush. You can maybe draw some leaves here, and we can rough these up, but you can make it look a little better. And they're like, oh, we're using purples, are we? Well, let's go and shade those purples a little bit. And again, this is all style, and you are more stylish than me, I'm sure. But coming in here and drawing out what could be, you might have to sort of work on it here. Could be great, though. This could be the answer to your problems. You have so many problems. Don't you want them answered? No, this looks okay. Maybe I'm fooling myself and it doesn't look okay. I just held down Shift there to make a quick line. Then we can go, one shade darker. We can go to totally different parts of our color palette to start making something a little weirder. And you might hate this. I'm not gonna say that I'm loving this right now. I think it's got some problems, but could be cool, could be neat. We could throw some stones in there, maybe. We could really mess up our look. So that's an option for you. Okay. Well, let's say We don't like that. We're just going to hold down Ctrl+Z and we're going to undo all that stuff that we just did because maybe it's not what you're going for. Aseprite is very generous on how long its buffer is about that kind of thing. But another cool thing you can do is, let's go back to using, let's try this. Oh, it's an experiment. I didn't do this yet, so I don't know, but I'm going to try it. So we have these tiles. Oh, one thing I like to do here is, let's just go back to mode 2, and I'm going to select just the surface of something here. And then I'm going to hold down Control and build a new tile here. Let's do that again. Okay, and then on this surface here, I'm going to make a little mini tile. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to cut off the edges of it here. And then I'm actually going to take the same tile. Here's a little trick for you you might not know. If you go to brush mode and then you hit Ctrl+B, woohoo, look, I have a brush. That's the tile, the selection I just had. It turns it into a brush. I can paint that all over, but I don't want to do that. But you could want to do that. If I go space R, it rotates the brush, and I'm going to make a little like half tile here. Go back to my eraser, and let's make the eraser smaller. Oh, I'm stuck on my source. I'm going to get back there, and now I'll go back to my eraser mode, and I'm just going to erase that there. And this has made the option of like a little mini platform, if you want to make a little mini platform. And I can go the same thing here. I can go grab that little mini platform, hit Ctrl+B for a new brush, and then space R. I'm going to rotate it the other direction here, and I have one in this direction. Oh, still the wrong type of eraser. Actually, let's do that again because I think it kind of messed up. So I'm going to it's M for a marquee tool, and then Ctrl+B to turn it into a brush. But you see, I want to make it sideways, and it's like taking the stuff here. So instead of pattern align to source, you can change this to a pattern align to destination, and it's going to make it go that way, which is what I want to do. So now I have little mini tiles in my tile palette, which is neat. So I can make little mini things, and then I can grab the whole thing. So I'm going to grab big marquee tool around everything. Perfect. And then I'm going to take my 15 tiles that I just made. Worked so very hard on, and I'm going to try to drop them there. And then I'm going to go edit. And I'm going to go to adjustments, color curve. And then with the color curve here, I'm going to, I don't know, let's make them a different look. So I can make another level really quickly. That's useful, okay? And because I have a limited color palette, let's say, sure, I want like an ice level. So we're gonna turn it blue, hit OK. And then I'm gonna go edit, replace color. Because I only have like 3 colors on here, and I can take the color from my color palette. Let's see if it'll allow me to do this. No, because I just made a new color. I want to trace the... I'd have to add it to my color palette, which I can do. So let's take that color there, and then click this little button here, and that adds it to the color palette here. And I'm going to now go back to replace color, and I'm going to replace that color I just made, this one here, and I'm going to replace it with a ice color. That's fast. That saves a lot of work for a lot of people, I'm sure. I can do the same thing for this new color here, add it to my color palette there, edit, replace color, and let's go from that color there to an even whiter, so it's like an ice level. Wow, that's cool. Now I can build an ice level out of my game. Okay, so I could keep going, but I'm not going to because that was enough of a lesson for today. So any questions about Aseprite, let us know in the Tech Lab. We can help you out with that. We'll see you down there. Thanks, everybody.